that, but
Good job.
I'm hoping it's all fun the whole way through. So hi, Lauren, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thank you very much. So let's start out. I wanted to introduce a little bit more about Lauren. I think you might have noticed there that she is from Australia, and she has worked in the media and the client side her entire career. You know, the great thing is beauty and retail seems to have followed her, where she worked with L'Oreal and Target in Australia. And then moving to the US, Lauren worked closely with Whole Foods and Revlon. And so most recently she was at Revlon, but then she landed what she considers her dream gig at E.L.F. Cosmetics and Beauty. So Lauren has a disdain for buzzwords in the industry proclaiming everything is dead. So again, she co-founded her own marketing education and events business called Cut the Crap, which Keith just noticed that or mentioned that for us. So she's had guests like Scott Galloway, as well as Cindy Gallup on her show. And if you haven't looked up Cut the Crap, please do. It's fabulous. So the next thing I want to do is let's do 10 rapid fire questions to Lauren to get to know her just a little bit better. I'm going to take about 60 seconds to do this. Our last question, I'm going to give it to her, but I'm going to ask her to hold it till the end of our conversation together. So are you ready, Lauren?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. Awesome. So number 10, favorite snack?
Choc chip Larabar.
Ooh. Number 9, favorite blog?
I'm going to say it's not my favorite. It's not a blog. It's a newsletter, but it's the Robin Hood Snacks. It's the last question about snacks, but it's really, really good. If you don't subscribe to that newsletter, I recommend it.
Okay. I'm going to do that. Favorite curse word?
How I got founded to get this job at E.L.F. was saying fucking E.L.F. So I think
okay, well, hey, it's out there. If it worked, right? So number 7, favorite commercial?
It'd have to be hands down the Gucci 2020 cruise commercial. That was one of the best pieces of work I've ever seen, and I still play it over and over for people if they're willing to go through the whole 2 minutes.
Oh, I think I might have to. Iggy Pop and Sienna Miller.
Yep, that's the one.
Mm-hmm. Number 6, favorite movie?
The Wedding Singer. Definitely.
Oh, wow. I like that one too. I actually, one of the executive leaders of my company actually calls me Julia Gulia. So that's a fun one.
Well, Drew Barrymore's a babe.
Number 5, favorite buzzword you love to hate?
Definitely omnichannel and agile are up there.
Fun. We'll talk about that later. Number 4, favorite social medium?
Twitter, followed by TikTok, very closely.
Okay. Spend a lot of time on TikTok. That's a fun one. Number 3, favorite song?
This definitely changes depending on my mood, but I'd say at the moment, the new the Chemical Brothers new song, The Darkness That You Fear. That's really good, if anyone's heard that.
I'll have to listen to that. Number 2, favorite city?
Definitely Mexico City. It's very cosmopolitan, very underrated.
Oh, wow. Okay. And this is the number 1 question. I'm just going to give it to you, but we're going to hold off for later. The favorite words to leave behind that don't suck. So
okay.
That, ruminate on it. And what I love about this is I think, you and I can hang out in Mexico City and watch the Wedding Singer, and you'll eat your Lara bars, but anything that's got peanut butter on it. So that's my favorite snack. So let's go on to number 2 here. So let's talk a little bit about the currency, what's going on in the industry right now and what people are considering the new normal. So what is relevant in your world right now as it relates to E.L.F?
I'd say firstly, like the new normal, I think is in itself almost like a buzz phrase that came about as we kind of go into this second stage of, post-COVID living. But I think from a media side of things, the things that are most relevant to us right now and to myself is, foremost the consumer. I think we think about them every single day, and that's definitely not a lie or embellishing that we're not consumer centric. And it's really thinking through, how are things impacting our shopper? Where are they shopping? What are they looking for? That is something that, we're talking about daily, weekly, and just keeping a pulse on it. It's not to say that we react all the time, but it's really trying to understand, the impact of like the last 18 months on the people that we're trying to reach. I would say the rising costs of digital and advertising and understanding its impact. We're getting to this point where there's a bit of a trade-off. Things are getting more expensive, and is the impact as big as it was once a day? Like, not so much. So we're trying to really understand that and, what the right investment is for us. And then, decentralization and e-commerce, I think, anything blockchain related. I think people laugh at me in the marketing sphere that are outside of our company, obviously, but we really do think like, you know, we're learning about it, and you have to learn about what is happening around you, because in time, like just much like e-com did, it'll jump back up, it'll come up, and you'll have to think about how do you consider it. And then I think bringing the in real life and digital things together, like we're in this hybrid world where, you know, we're virtual, we've got conferences, and this is not so much to, you know, what type of events do we have? How do we connect with our audience? You know, is it online? Is it in real life? Where is that combination? So that's something across the board we're also thinking about, because it doesn't just affect media, it's events, it's how we go to market, it's how we're in store. So all of these things are kind of a constant kind of what we're thinking through on a daily basis, and I think are most relevant as we go into like the next, you know, 6 months.
So it sounds like maybe over the last 18 months or so, that's even gotten more hypersensitive to those things you just talked about, you know? So maybe it's like shortened our time frame, our bandwidth on how do we think about those things now? And it's kind of made things go even quicker. So it sounds, you know, kind of works that way. Is it the same moving forward, or are you going to, you say things really, really different moving forward?
I don't think things change that much. I think things get accelerated, and like, you know, we're moving quicker on things that might have been another 5 or 6 years off. But I really, you know, I always say like, you know, we think we move fast, but often things don't move that fast at all. And when I think of like, you know, what has changed, and like, I think we were just talking along the side the other day about, you know, what are the things that have changed and have they really changed? And I think the things that, you know, keep me up at night, so to say, haven't changed. It's like, you know, data, how do we use it to make better decisions? How do we inform decisions? How do we measure? Like, how do we think about, you know, bringing the brand and the upper funnel pieces together so we can prove that that is having an effect over time? And then creative, like, you know, these 3 things, I feel like any media person and any marketing team at any given time is always thinking about them and how to adapt as we're going to go through each year.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. So what are the positive things that your brands has happened at E.L.F. in the last 12 months?
Well, honestly, I'm very lucky. I only started at E.L.F. in May, so I can't take any credit for anything. But, you know, in our last earnings call, you know, I think we're in 10 consecutive months growth. So I feel very, very honored to work alongside, you know, Corey, our CMO, as well as Tarang, who's an amazing operator. And so these are positive things. So everything that E.L.F. has set out to do over the last 2 years is really paying off. And last year, when most brands were flailing with their digital strategies and not knowing what to do with the changes, E.L.F. had already like created that foundation. And I think that's what's really special, is that they were already thinking about the consumer first and what that digital map looks like beyond having a crisis where you had to quickly activate. So they were set up really, really well to ride the wave last year and go into this year to really, you know, then continue to capitalize on all that positive momentum and all the people that came to E.L.F. and were able to connect with. So I think it's a testament to the team where we are today. And I think that we continue in that momentum, because we're always looking ahead and always thinking about, you know, what's next when we think about where is our customer and what do they need from us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the same across the board. We all have to think that way. So you just talked about what it keeps you up at night. So I was going to ask that question next, but we can skip over that one. So, you know, how does E.L.F. think about media? So we've talked a lot about, you know, the actual platforms and how you're connecting with consumers, but how do you think about media, and how are you adapting the media strategy as you go forward?
So one of the reasons why I wanted to come to E.L.F. was, you know, I think you have 2 different types of marketers and 2 different types of media people. You can have big picture and small picture. And the small picture is awfully obsessed with just like these tiny little bits of information that we might get from data. But what's really special about E.L.F. is that everything is big picture, and really understanding, you know, our consumer at a macro level, our business at a macro level, and really trying to connect the pipes across all of these different things for the long haul, not just these short-term bursts. So when I think about media, and I think about that specifically in this context, you know, I'm so proud to work in an organization that thinks of it as the fuel that could help us ignite the different channels that we have underneath us, and within a team integrated marketing and for the brand. Like you're always straddling, you know, direct response and brand building at the same time, and making sure that synergy is there, because there's no good just having performance marketing if no one's interested in your brand. Like you need both.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think we do a very good job of balancing them. But what I think the philosophy of how media, and how I even see myself within the sphere of the team is that, we start with the brand strategy first. Like that's so important, followed by like where the customer is, what our comms hierarchy is, and then our creative strategy. And then we go, hey, media. And media is meant to be the fuel that really extends everything that we do far beyond, just the remit of what we can get organically. So I really do see us as that kind of fuel where we line up to all the things that we want to fire out and drive that momentum across the integrated teams.
That's so smart and so relevant. I always talk about media in that same aspect. It doesn't matter if you have a souped up Chrysler 300 or if you're driving the new electric car, you've got to have the right fuel in there in order to go anywhere. So really well put. So we've got a couple of questions. Can I stop?
Yeah, go for it.
So Phil Lomax has asked a few questions here. E.L.F has some great success on TikTok. How have you measured success on the platform? How are you engaging with audiences authentically?
That's a great question. I think the TikTok one, it is a little anomaly, TikTok as a social platform. And I think the brilliant thing that E.L.F has done, and it's a collective effort, I can assure you, is not only collaborate with partners outside of, we have an agency, we work with movers and shakers, but we also work, with the brand, the integrated marketing team, the influencer lead. And the way that I think, I'd really say that we've won TikTok in a way is the authentic way we've gone to market organically. I think starting at the channel at a level where you're thinking about fueling it with the right content that people want to see, we don't go straight to we need to advertise on TikTok. It's really how do we actually connect with our audience that's on TikTok and how do they want us to show up? And so we've really made a concerted effort to think about that organic content strategy with our partners to make sure that we are fueling the trends, that we are speaking to our consumer in the way they want to be spoken to, and that it feels organic. And one of the things I think I saw early on when I was jumped on board was the virality. We honestly could see from one of the posts that we've done when that went viral organically, it wasn't fueled by media, that then did actually transcend into sales in store. And it's one of the first times I could confidently say that, social did actually drive that. And you can actually see the spike when you're looking at your own search demand, you're seeing the sales peak, and then as well as the metrics on that particular post within TikTok itself. So it's definitely a combination. There's no silver bullet of measurement, but it's making sure that we're keeping a pulse on organic metrics. How does that then translate when we do have these spikes? How are we tying it back? And then obviously using the data that we have within the platform to substantiate whether we got there or not.
Oh, awesome. It's a great question, Philip. He's with media science. I just want to put that out there. Another question for you, Lauren, is E.L.F products are on the lower end of price points, comparatively speaking, yet the brand is highly desirable. How have you been able to keep the low price point without being commoditized?
Don't know if I can talk completely about the supply chain and how we create our products and the cost of all that. So I will steer off that, but there's a great desire. We definitely, I think, do such a great job at keeping E.L.F top of mind. And I think creating desire is creating, getting people to want to be part of something and see that, that we're on the forefront of trends, that we're bringing unexpected things together. I think of Chipotle and E.L.F together, being in interesting places where people don't expect us. I have this NFT background here. We had a $9 NFT. That had to be the cheapest NFT that you could possibly buy in the metaverse this last year. So I think that desire comes from creating this community around E.L.F, the fans that love it and that we fuel and that we treat as family, and then kind of bringing people into the fold. So you want to be part of it. You can see that we're doing something and that we're bringing a lot of people with us, and naturally, that's appealing and people want to jump on board and be part of that movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just talked about E.L.F and Chipotle. So I found that very interesting. Is it where you're finding that your consumers almost are, there's a Venn diagram. So you've got E.L.F on one side and Chipotle on the other, and you've got a lot of.
I think that very much was the case. Yeah, that it was both of our brands, as Corey would always speak to, that, you kept showing up at the same types of reports, the same type of Gen Z reports, and that we do know that our audiences have a synergy and, both have a love for Chipotle and E.L.F. And yes, it's unexpected, but bringing those two unexpected brands together really allowed us to stand out in white space where beauty is like a sea of same. So how do you actually get into somebody's consideration set and notice you? That was kind of the beauty of bringing those two brands together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. Philip asked one more question and we'll move on to our next section, but I'll ask you this question. Can you share how storytelling informs helps you navigate away from commodification? I think I said that right. Commodification, yeah.
So storytelling, I think it's like the age-old battle for any brand. How do you tell your brand story, but also tell your product story, especially in beauty? And it's driven a lot by innovation and newness, and getting people to come into the fold. So exactly, there's Pat in our chat. Is that like how do we bring that value to the consumer, and we make sure that is foremost. Like we are for every eye, face, lip that's out there, and so that's really important that we live that in everything that we do, and that we have great products, we have a great accessible price point, and we meet the person where they want to shop. I think that sounds really obvious, but I'm telling you, like brands that I've worked on in the past, when you have your own website and then multiple other retailers, there can be attention. But what's really great at E.L.F is the philosophy that, we want to be there where they are, where people want to shop, where they've showed interest, and we do that A+ every time. There's no one is more important. It's making that consumer experience really seamless and easy for our customer.
Yes, absolutely. I think you actually Philip helped us arch into our next little section, which was building the brands and what role media plays in that. So we've kind of moved into that, which is great. So how important is it for a brand to know what relevant research they need, or what their relevant research their agency needs in order to do the actual buying?
I think it's like the research piece, I think is very important. And knowing that you need to have a starting point. And I think there's responsibility on the brand side and our side to be able to, have a point for an agency to start. Like who is our customer? We know best based on the data that we have in the transaction. So we can at least understand who our shopper base is, what we learn about them, and the different types of research that allows us to go deeper. And then twofold on the agency side, if we're able to provide, a level of information of who we think this person is, who we know to be from shoppers, this is a really, a good starting point to work collaboratively with that agency to then build out, okay, who does this person look like across all our different channels? I think that's like, we always try to think about them single-mindedly, like who is our customer in these different segments? And then how do we work with the agency to determine where do we find them? How do we build them in each of those channels? What data do we need? What sources do we need? And I do think it's a joint responsibility of understanding what research is available, what sources, what data you can buy, what's not, like what's within the endemic in the platform, and then holding hands together to determine that this is the best starting point for us in a buying capacity, and then always iterating, because that's what you have to do. Like you're never going to get it one and done straight away. And there's going to be some data and some research that leads you one way, and it's going to be successful, but then you might learn something else on the other side. So you want to be able to pivot and lean into that as well. So I think it's, bringing the two parties together. And I think working collaboratively from the start is really important.
Yeah, I would agree with you. A lot of times I hear agencies tell us that, the client has dictated X research, and sometimes that's not the most relevant research, I think, to really help that brand thrive. So even with brands that might not have the same marketing budget as like an E.L.F or a Target or Walmart, would you offer the same type of advice? You got to be very collaborative?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both have skin in the game. I really do. And I think one of the things that I learned, going through from an agency side, working on the client and on the client side, is that, you both need skin in the game. And it's like, how do you own the research relationships together? How do you actually, audit yourselves? Like, I think, the agency is only good as the brief, and, we're only as good as the information that we have and know about our customer, so we can translate these together. So I think whether you have a big budget or a small budget, you can mitigate and like work through what you have and what you don't have, and try to fill in the gaps together, because you're only going to be better together once you kind of start at the same spot and try to like test your different theses and build from there.
I would agree too. So you have multiple brands at E.L.F, and I'm assuming that you probably have different strategies from a media standpoint for each one of those brands. Can you go through it really quickly for us?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we have E.L.F, which is obviously, you know, the flagship. We have Alicia Keys Soul Care, and we also have Well People, which is a more clean, natural brand. And we think about all of these brands differently. We never cookie cutter that just because that did well on E.L.F, we're going to do the same for Alicia Keys and Soul Care. We really take the time to work with our, you know, research leads, with the brands, and to understand, you know, from the start, like we could easily go, they're all Gen Z and all Gen Millennial. That doesn't really make any sense to give these broad sweeping statements across these different brands. We really try to dig in deeply into knowing who our customer is. And then from there, everything starts to unravel. Like I said earlier, it's like once the brand strategy is set and we're learning about the different things we want to own, what our customer is expecting from this product and who they are, then our strategy you know, is fluid from there. We don't try to force that we need to do this like this all year. We're really trying to build something bespoke and custom. So we're reaching our consumer in the best place possible. We don't have bazillion dollars to spend. So we have to make some tough decisions and make sure that we're doing the most effective thing to continue to grow the brands.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. So personalization and precision targeting. So do you believe this is the future of media targeting?
I don't. I think like when I say little picture, like getting obsessed that someone might like the color green and we're going to buy a data set to say they really love green peanuts. Like not that you can even get that, but I think you think in targeting, you do want to, you can just buy anything, right? And you're really just buying a probability or the likelihood that by having this data set, this person is going to be more qualified. But at the end of the day, you don't know. There's too many other variables. So the best way to think about, you know, targeting is really starting like who's in market for your product. Like you want every week is a new sales opportunity. Everyone's in a different spot of this buying cycle. So how do you determine what are those triggers and where they are and the best affinities or the best context to reach that person when they might be in that state to buy, or that it will build memory with them when they're ready to go, hey, I actually need to buy that product and I'm standing in front of the shelf and it resonates.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds as if I put it all together, you know, when you can't avoid addressing the data and you kind of have to look at the data and really help it express where you need to go from there. So if brands are not watching and looking at that data or that research, do you think they're going to lose touch with their consumers?
Well, if you're not actually keeping, like, you know, you don't want to get so micro that every day you're looking at, oh, did they do this or that, and making a decision, because things don't, like I said, move that quickly. You want to trend things over time, but you definitely want to have a strong fold on understanding, you know, their shopping habits, where they're buying, how purchases have changed, sales have changed on your own e-com is probably the best proxy for understanding, you know, how people are engaging with your brand. I definitely like, you can have too much data, but you definitely need to use what you do have to make some informed decisions. Otherwise, you will lose out. How could you possibly know, you know, who to target or when to do it or where they're shopping if you're not actually critically thinking about the information at hand?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's move on to a game that you thought would be fun to play. And I think it's going to be fun to play too. And it's called Bullshit or Brilliant. And I can't believe I actually said that.
Yay.
Yeah, so there we go. So Keith, I'm right there with you if you're listening in. So
yeah.
Do you want me to explain the game? Or
go for it, go. Okay. I made my pitches.
Okay, fabulous. So what is it? What is Bullshit or Brilliant? It is the signature game that is played on Cut the Crap events. With the speaker and the attendees. So I'm going to read a list of statements, and Lauren, you're going to have to say whether or not you believe it's bullshit or brilliant. And for those for those on chat, by the way, please, you know, you can put a poop emoji in there if you want to, and one, obviously, and then, or you can put a lion emoji, and so that we're going to represent the Cane's lion for brilliant. So please play along with us if you want to. So the first topic I want to talk about is predictive behavior, audience, and activation.
I'm going to say brilliant. Can you see my little line? I drew it myself.
I like that.
I think it's actually a good segue from what we were just saying about, like, you know, being over hyper targeted or personalized. I think if we get to a point where you're understanding the triggers and, you know, what people are doing at a given time, it doesn't matter if they're Gen Z or Gen X, that could be very powerful, because often, you know, you want to get them where they're in that mode to potentially purchase your product. So if you can do that well and have the triggers to do so, I think that type of targeting would definitely be what I see as the future, versus we're going to target someone so small and hopefully they do something.
Absolutely. And, you know, I mean, the whole point of the predictive of behavioral, it's like cookie lists, right? So our whole point is to ensure that we're still reaching that right person at the right time with the right message. So absolutely.
What do other people think? There's no emojis. This is like the
no
best
emojis.
That's very neutral.
So we can talk about that on after the show here. But okay, what about brand purpose? What do you think brand purpose and the needs of that to the audience?
I think that you need to have purpose. I sit between maybe bullshit, like it's a
yeah, there you go.
And like brilliant. Like I think it is important, like to have as a company, you know, what do you stand for? Because I think you've got to start from the inside before you go out. And I think for us, it's like inclusivity, it's being there for every consumer and being able to cater their needs. So I think that within itself is very true to E.L.F, but we don't feel the need to like, you know, push it out onto everybody. It should be just in how we exist and how we show up, which I think we do a really good job of that, being inclusive. But you know, if you think you need to have a brand purpose to have a brand purpose, and like, then you're thinking about it wrong. So
yes, it's got to be meaningful. Absolutely. Okay, so video strategy is part of a media plan that goes beyond digital and social forums.
I'm going to say brilliant. I do think we need to think about, like, it's not just in digital. People do exist outside of the sphere. So video, yes, online, or whether it be out of home, or it be on the TV screen or in cinema. I think being able to extend your strategies to include it will only garner incremental reach and allow you to reach more of your potential customer base. So that can only, in my opinion, have positive effects as you think about driving brand salience and making people aware of your product. So I am a big supporter of like having, you know, a full spectrum of channels in any plan.
Absolutely. So way outside just the digital. Okay. So what about Zoom calls? Makeup, no makeup?
Depends on the day. I did put makeup on for you today. I'm wearing my E.L.F Big Mood mascara.
Oh, and that just won an Allure award. So that's pretty cool.
Exactly. Good research.
Okay. And what about Crocs and ranch dressing partnership?
I think I think it's brilliant. I think anything unexpected is brilliant. I think Crocs is, I think, similar to us in that appealing to a younger generation and finding ways in to stand out. And I think it's unexpected. Bringing Crocs with like America's iconic the salad dressing, which I don't like, by the way, but I do really appreciate this campaign. Brilliant, because it allows them to stand out and kind of take, you know, we want the PR value. That is so valuable. Those impressions that come with it, I think even more valuable than media.
Yeah, I would say it is unexpected, and you know, maybe it's an American thing, but you know, we put it on everything. You know,
it's a trend. You've seen Van Leeuwen with mac and cheese, like ourselves a food.
Yeah, so crazy. Okay, so what's the crap that most needs to be cut in the media strategy and buying world? So we're going to move on to our next little segment, and this will be it, and then we're going to open it up. I hoping there are going to be some more questions to ask.
Lost everyone.
Yeah. So we can agree that the industry is obsessed with the new and shiny, and we often proclaim things to be dead, like data is in the new oil or TV is dead. Sell the next best thing. So do you think that's crap or?
I think, I do think that's why I started Cut the Crap, because I think we do have an obsession with the new and the shiny, and it's definitely a balance between, you know, picking new opportunities and new media opportunities and new ways to connect with your audience. Super important, especially if you want to bring new people into your brand. You know, don't be afraid to try new things, but don't just do it because it's there and it's the newest and the latest. Like, you want to have a strategy and make sure that it is part of what your brand, you know, pillars are. Like, you don't want to just do something so random that it doesn't feel authentic to the brand. Like, I think for us, we say yes to so many different things. And I think it's so great because we know who E.L.F is, what E.L.F is, where our customer is, and then ways that we can actually use culture and things that are coming up relevantly to we're going to do that, or we're not going to do this. And so that really gives us a really clear matrix to know when to press go and when to stop. And the ultimate goal is to obviously, you know, bring more people into our family.
Absolutely. So it's nice to see that y'all do try new media and you do new technologies, but you need to make sure it makes sense for the brand. So do you have any advice for media leads that want to bring new media ideas forward to leadership?
Yeah, I think it's always very tricky, like, you know, to kind of back something that's new and sometimes unknown. But I think building a case is often got to start that with like, what are your objectives? Is it like as the brand team, the creative, like what are you trying to achieve? Who is your audience? And then it's like, okay, is this a vehicle that could potentially allow you to connect to that audience, reach new people, sell something to a different niche section that you hadn't considered before? I just think it's really important to, map that back. And that really shows critical thinking, and that you're laying out the foundations of what success could look like. We know it's very volatile out there. Like you can have all the best conditions and know everything, like, you've taken all your learnings, you put everything in play. But at the end of the day, sometimes, it just doesn't land, but that's okay. Right. Like you have to have a shared risk tolerance together, that some things you've made the best decisions that you can possibly make. And, this is the outcome, yay or nay, and can pivot accordingly. And learn.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, so even if sometimes things fail, but just long as we fail faster and do.
I think it's great to fail. I know that sounds awful, but you're going to sometimes. You enter with risk with media. We're in the gray all the time, very abstract. So it's just important to kind of set what those milestones are for success, and, hold hands on those things and understand what to do next time and what worked, what didn't work.
Absolutely. And use the research at your fingertips in order to make sure you've got the visions. So let's talk about buzzwords. So you said earlier your favorite buzzword to hate is omni-channel. What about the other ones on your list of?
Okay, so omni-channel is really high up there. It's definitely not a strategy. I think you should be thinking how to connect to your consumer in all facets of the business. So that's why when I see omni-channel, I'm just like, oh God, that should be what you're doing anyway. The other one is metaverse. I saw someone just put up a question about the metaverse. Mm-hmm. Philip, gosh, I love you. I don't know who you are, but you're great. I think that is a buzzword. And I think my boss will say, oh, Lauren, rolling your eyes again. But it is important to understand it though. Like, whilst I don't like it as a token word, it is real, the digital world and where that's going from a, augmented reality, connection, like even Facebook. I don't know who's going to go to their Horizon workspaces, but, understanding what the different universe types are that people are, like, it's not just about gamers, that like, it's niche, but it's growing more mass by the day as people start to understand, why they exist, how to participate, and what's in it for them. So I think the metaverse is definitely something that's high on the list of buzzwords to hate, but also something that I love to see, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Interesting. I had to look it up. So I have not, it has not made it into my little world over here, but that's okay. Now I know it. What about the word agile? Agile.
Well, that's a very McKinsey word. Agile. Look, you can be, for me, it's like, I think I've got PTSD from McKinsey consultant sessions, but the word agile, I think you want to be able to move quickly. I think that's really important. And the biggest thing that I've, learned at E.L.F, and, what the special sauce is really the way that they've set themselves up, how we've set ourselves up to be able to move really quickly on moments as they come up. And that's what allows us to ride the waves and kind of extend, what we're doing on a daily basis beyond just the plans that are in front of us, is that ability to move fast. I wish we didn't have to say the word agile. But yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. We have some more buzzwords, but I'm going to, because of our time, I want to make sure I get some closing remarks from you, Lauren. In your opinion, what makes a good media strategy?
So I think your media strategy, very much like I said earlier, is only as good as your brand strategy. And when you have a great brand strategy, a collaborative and creative environment where you've got, the creative team working with the product team, the insights and the brand, then you're going to have a great media strategy, because these things all come together. But what underpins, the media strategy and all these things for us at E.L.F is the ability to grab attention and to live in headlines and, not just see it as like a pay to play. It's like, we really, really take advantage of how, people work and how we can actually get into their, considerations outside of just your basic marketing plans. So, if you have all these things lined up, then you can do really great PR. You can really live in like moments very quickly and, extend the brand far beyond just, what's in front of you. And I think being famous is also really important, like trying to build fame. Famous brands do very well. You don't there's so much PR value that comes from that. And then media fuels all of that. So I think you can get it to go a lot further than just where you're at currently.
Okay. Really good point. And I appreciate that, because I think you could have a great brand strategy, but if you don't get it out into the world in the right place, be, it's going to all fall on its face, and we don't want that to happen. All right. So getting back to my, the last question I asked you of our fast track earlier, favorite phrase or words to leave behind to the audience that don't suck. So there you go.
Hopefully they don't suck, guys. You can tell me if they suck. But I stand by this for myself, and I live these words. And anyone that I've ever mentored will know that I always say this. It's like, always be curious and always seek to understand. Curiosity is such a skill, and you want to feed your curiosity, because that allows you to uncover things that are just not straight in front of you. They might not be as obvious. And then to understand, when things like the metaverse pop up, it's like, don't just poo-poo it, go understand it. Like, see why it's having resonance with people, learn about it. Doesn't mean you have to do anything with it just yet, but having that pulse and that curiosity will allow you to stay ahead of the game, I think.
Okay, I love it. Lauren, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure getting to know you.
No worries. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you both, Lauren and Julia, and thank you very much for the theme of constantly learning. I really liked also hearing about using data to make informed